Hello, I'm television and radio producer, presenter Rob McKnight. With over 3 decades in the industry, this is Media McKnight. The federal government has revealed its draft legislation for the next stage of the news bargaining incentive. The idea is to get big tech to pay for the journalism it uses on its platforms. And this is legislation I have major issues with. Basically, any company that scrapes information from stories should be subject to this legislation, especially if they are using that info to create answers using that journalism. But if a company like Facebook is simply showing a headline with a story linked back to the original article, then those companies should not have to pay any fees. Websites use Facebook, Instagram, etc. to promote their stories. In fact, sources tell me that without traffic from social media sites, many news orgs in Australia would have significantly less traffic. Most Aussies don't go directly to news websites. They click links showing stories. So why should social media companies pay to promote your product? It would be like the federal government launching a new advertising campaign and telling Channel 7 they have to pay to air the ads. Just doesn't make sense. Forcing Facebook to pay to promote your news site, that also doesn't make sense. Let me give you a clear example. The federal government has just released a series of ads about the fuel crisis. The government pays 7, 9, 10, News Corp and other sites to play those ads or show banners on their websites. Those organisations don't pay the federal government for the honour of airing those ads, because that would be stupid. It's the same thing when the TV networks and news websites advertise their products on social media. The only difference here is they can do it for free. But instead of being thankful, those news companies want the social media companies to pay for the privilege of marketing their products and driving consumers back to their websites, and that is just plain stupid. Let's take a look at the press conference the Prime Minister gave last week justifying the media bargaining incentive.
We think that investment in journalism is critical to a healthy democracy. It matters. It's something that defines the way that Australian society operates. And frankly, if the work is being done by the people here at this press conference and in other places right around Australia, then your work needs to have a monetary value attached to it. It shouldn't just be able to be taken by a large multinational corporation and used to generate profits for that organisation with no compensation appropriate for the people who produce that creative content.
Now look, I agree there should be healthy investment into journalism, and I have no issue with the government suspending the commercial broadcasting tax for another 2 years. That will deliver an estimated $111 million in savings across the sector. So at least the government is putting its money where its mouth is. But when it comes to the media bargaining incentive, well, as I stated, AI platforms should absolutely be paying for access to that journalism. But social media is not using that journalism. The media companies commissioning that journalism are using social media to market those stories to consumers for free and generate profits by getting those consumers to their website. If I search for Rebel Wilson, the defamation trial on Facebook, I don't get free access to stories on the platform. What I get are links to other websites. So I click that link, like this news.com.au one, and I'm taken to that website. And now I'm on the News Corp website, reading the story on the News Corp website. There's been no theft. The same if I go to the ABC story. A headline with a picture draws me in. I click the link and I'm taken to the ABC website. Now, it's true that if these companies post videos, like a clip from Sunrise or the news, then I can watch that within Facebook. But it's Channel 7 that has made that decision to post that video as part of a branding exercise. They want people on Facebook to share the video and show 7 is across the story. That's free marketing for 7. Why should Facebook be paying for that? And that seems to be the fundamental misunderstanding of this whole thing. That became clear to me when the Minister for Communications, Annika Wells, spoke at that press conference.
People are increasingly getting their news directly from Facebook, from TikTok and from Google. And we believe it's only fair that large digital platforms contribute to the hard work of journalism that enriches their feeds and that drives their revenue.
But they're not getting their news directly from Facebook. They're getting a headline, a promotion, something they have to click to get to the story. Google, however, well, that's a different story. When I do a Google search to find out who spoke at that press conference, I'm given an answer from AI, an answer that is scraped from news websites like the ABC. This is the key difference for me. When information from news outlets is supplied without me having to click a link that takes me back to the original source, well, that's theft, and Google should be forced to pay for that. It's a pretty black and white issue in my eyes, but politics has taken over. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube should not have to pay news organisations that choose to promote their content on those platforms. Google Search and AI platforms that use journalism to provide answers to their customers, and therefore they should have to pay. It's a clear distinction, and one our politicians just don't seem to understand. Screen Forever was held last week on the Gold Coast, and I was invited along to attend various panel sessions. Producers from around the nation and around the world come together to talk about the film and television industry each year. And this year, there was a lot of hope about the future, despite the challenges. The ABC is always a major feature of this event, and there were some fascinating insights laid bare. Managing Director Hugh Marks addressed recent headlines about the ABC failing to lock in merchandising rights for Bluey, saying, "There are always reasons why things happen as they happen, but that's probably 300 million of income that's going to the UK that if it was coming to Australia actually would change a lot of the people's lives in this room if that was able to be reinvested in the industry." So to me, at the moment, it's all about intellectual property. It's about us taking and the industry taking the right steps to create the IP that's going to create the value that's going to be able to be reinvested into our market. Nine's Adrian Swift backed up that statement, expressing the importance of owning IP, and pointed out the block is Australian IP, before adding, "We are not here to simply recycle shows. We are all incentivised to come up with new IP. You'll see more of that on Stan." One of those shows with unique IP is a new series for the streamer about OnlyFans. It will look at the lives of the people who make money on the subscription platform. He also spruiked the success of Maths after the dinner party, which was a big subscription driver for Stan. He then made a valiant effort to talk up the new series Shark, which is coming to Nine later this year. I've reported production insiders are saying it's a dog, but Adrian talked about the fact the Australian version is very different to the English flop. Look, good on him for trying, but those who've seen it reckon it's boring, and it will be lucky to get a second series despite contractual agreements. Over at 10 Paramount, Sarah Thornton said that unlike Nine, they don't see the need for the Paramount Plus streaming service to have exclusive content. Instead, shows that launch on the platform are likely to be shown on Channel 10 at some point later down the track. But don't expect revolutionary concepts to hit the screen, with Sarah adding, "It's unlikely but not impossible that we would invest in a new primetime franchise that was untested at this point." And that's really the state of Australian television at the moment. Taking a risk on an unproven format can lead to financial disaster. In years gone by, networks could afford one or two flops, but today there's no room for that. Shows have to hit, or at least bring in an audience that matches what's currently on screen. New formats don't guarantee ratings, and it's getting harder for executives to put their head on the chopping block for something they believe in. Angus Ross was the programmer of Australia's #1 network at 7, and even that wasn't enough to save his job. So can we blame executives for being risk adverse? Overall, the message from the conference was the industry is looking for more ways to reach audiences. Yes, we live in challenging times, but there seemed to be a real hunger to keep telling Australian stories on the ABC and on film. Now, there's a lot more to unpack, and I would have liked to bring you more from Screen Forever, but despite the fact every session was filmed with full broadcast cameras, the conference doesn't make those recordings available to media. It's quite strange, actually. This conference had many sessions about how to reach new audiences through social media, but the only way I can report on what was said in this video format show is by running quotes that I have to voice myself. I get that they want people to actually attend the conference, but I'm only suggesting they allow people like me to use small clips to show key moments. Who knows? It could help drive audience attendance for future events. Something to consider for next year, perhaps. At a time when there's no job certainty in the media sector, Sarah Arbo has just taken out an insurance policy which will guarantee her return to Channel 9's Today Show after she takes maternity leave. Despite this headline in the Sunday Telegraph, which was actually published Saturday night, saying Sarah Arbo and Carl Stefanovic could both exit Today Show in major host refresh, well, she won't be going anywhere. Why? Because she is making it clear she intends to return to work. With the paper reporting, the popular TV host has been telling friends and colleagues she intends to return to her job on Today 3 months after her baby boy is born, Sunday Confidential has learned. Despite the report casting doubt on her return, I've got to say she's making it hard for Nine to axe her. It's certainly not going to be a good look sacking a new mum returning from maternity leave, if indeed that is Nine's plan. With Sarah making it clear she intends to return to work, no amount of PR spin will be able to justify her sudden decision to quit The Breakfast Show. It's a brilliant play by Sarah, whether she planned it or not. Of course, Sarah has reason to be worried about job security, as does everyone at Nine. The network announced 20 jobs will be made redundant in the first stage of its future news overhaul. It's understood the overhaul will reduce roughly 100 existing job titles into 9 core roles, while streamlining more than 120 production and publishing systems into 3 key platforms used across broadcast and digital outputs. A presentation sent to staff at the end of last year and leaked to Media McKnight reveals breakfast programming is transitioning over to automation. Today Extra and Weekend Today have already moved over to the new system, and the main show is expected to follow suit soon. It's a big change to the way the show is currently produced. Sunrise and Today have both avoided small control room crews due to their fast-paced changing rundowns. That will no longer be the case for the Today Show, with the current team cut down to just a few. Expect Channel 7 to keep an eye on how the Today Show fares and copy the changes down the track. Of course, it's not just a problem here in Australia. Disney recently announced 1,000 job cuts throughout its company. It's becoming a familiar story throughout the sector. Technology is certainly making it easier for companies to cut staffing costs, and that's creating uncertainty in the media sector. One thing's for sure, the only certainty these days is the lack of certainty when it comes to employment. You can show your support for the show by buying me a coffee. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/McKnight tonight. Every bit helps keep this show from our garage going. During my week off, I went to the premiere of an indie film called All My Friends Are Back in Brisbane. Made with a budget of just $13,000, the film holds up against features with much bigger budgets. I was genuinely engaged with the story, made lovingly by a cast and crew who put their faith, time and energy into the project for free. It stars newcomer Nell and features home and away star Dan Ewing, who both deliver excellent performances. Produced and written by Stephen Vagg and directed by Louise Alston, it's a delightful story and a production the industry should get behind. In fact, I was so taken with the film, I've offered to cut them a trailer for free. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. For any streamer looking for local content, this is an easy win, and they are looking for a distributor. You can take a look at the film for yourself, as there are some special screenings taking place. From May 29 to 31, there's a Q&A at the 5-Star Cinemas in Brisbane. If you're in Sydney, there's a screening on June 18 at the Randwick Ritz. And for those in Melbourne, book your tickets for the July 9 screening at the Lido Hawthorn. Honestly, the Screen Forever conference talked about the need to support Australian content. And this is one film that ticks all the boxes. It's engaging, has a great cast, and is a really enjoyable watch. So, do yourself a favour. And finally, a big congratulations to 9 News Melbourne sports presenter Tony Jones, who is celebrating 40 years at the network. And in true Tony style, his reaction to an on-air congratulations was as awkward as you'd expect.
Now, Tony, we normally send you off on your merry way at this point, but don't go anywhere because this, of course, is a very special week for you.
Right.
Tomorrow...
Am I going?
No, you're not. Tomorrow marks a massive 4 decades with Channel 9, which is not something that we can let pass. Yes. Tony, would you like to say something?
Well, yeah, I mean, Annette and I have been together for 37 of these 40 years, so Annette's been through it all, and it wouldn't have started had it not been for Mum sort of... Well, you know, we had no money, of course, but anyway, you found something to put me through radio school, so thanks very much. And Mum doesn't miss a bulletin. Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Oh, Mum's got tears in her eyes.
Yeah. No, I think it could be hay fever.
He makes it awkward at the start. Am I getting the sack? And then he saves it by getting emotional with his mum. To last that long in the industry is an amazing achievement, especially with all the bad jokes TJ's made over the years. Congratulations, Tony. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Media McKnight. We'll be back again next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time at youtube.com/@McKnightTonight. Paid members get the episodes as soon as they are ready and don't have to wait for the 8 p.m. scheduling. McKnight Tonight returns tomorrow. I'm Rob McKnight. I hope to see you then.